I'm looking forward to spending this time led by Anne. And I know something new and something always um, with lots of spiritual velocity is in line for what we're about to share. So, Anne, begin our time.
Okay, velocity. Here we go. My intention for this time together is that we extend the service that was shared with David and Robert into this time and pick up some of the movement that took place during that time using some of the themes, not specifically quoting what was said, but I think you'll see the continuation of the themes. When I was thinking about how to have a starting point for my thoughts to share this morning, I had one of those middle of the night inspirations where a sentence came into consciousness and it just grabbed my heart. And I knew that it was something that I needed to begin with. And the sentence was, I have a profound respect for angelic design. I am truly in awe of the angels who have appeared in my life. For instance, we could think about our earthly families. And I was thinking about my earthly family and how various essences were present in those people who gave me gifts that I was able to bring into my creative process called my life. Sometimes the gift was what to do, and sometimes the gift was what not to do. But all these essences seem to be perfectly appearing, particularly as I look back. I can appreciate that. And then friendships, all the various friendships that I've had and you have had, how the specific person appeared in your life and you go through a cycle with them, a process. Sometimes it ends, sometimes it continues. But these angels that are drawn to us are very intriguing when you look at it. Partnerships have changed us. They teach us many things about living intimately with someone else. The purification intensifies in such situations. The purpose keeps refining as you go along. There may be a knowing that there's a destination that you can sense. Maybe it's even articulated. But all these partnerships and friendships keep honing the approach to something. Then in my case, I became a mother and I had a daughter, and that exponentially changed the whole world that I was stewarding. It expanded and it was connected into many, many places and people. And I also saw that the angel who appeared in the form of my daughter was exactly the one that needed to be with me, and I with her. And there have been immense gifts that have come out of that association. And then there were ways of living, how somehow, in my case, I was attracted to living with people. Right from the beginning, right out of university, I started living with people, and it developed into larger and more complex arrangements, from roommates into actual communities and communal experiences. It felt like that was something that was really necessary in my life path. I wanted to do it. I was compelled to do it. I also noticed how very specific life decisions that came along were sometimes even dramatically made in the progression of things. sometimes an entire about face that your world took. And after it was taken, I know in my case, I realized it was exactly the correction that was needing to happen as this forward movement was continuing. Wasn't all smooth sailing, but there was something progressively moving along. We were moved spiritually, we were moved emotionally, physically, and sometimes we were moved right across the continent. Sometimes we felt like we were being moved right across the universe. At least that's how it felt for me. In other words, it just felt like there was an invisible hand directing things behind the scene that I could trust. And that was guiding and compelling me through my being to go and be with something or someone, and that I was blessed. I was blessed by this benevolence. In other words, design. Design was emerging increasingly. The design around me, they shifted, but the interest became more conscious that there were specific designs that kept constellating around me as a person. And then I started to think about all the great ones who came that we read of in the Bible, and how they too all had very specific designs of people that were around them to enhance and to expand and interact in what was coming forth through their leadership. You can think about Noah. He had his family and some friends, apparently, who were capable of being in confined quarters, and who were present to allow a great purification in the earth, so that a design that was being carried by them could then manifest. Abraham, the seed of a design. Joseph had such an interesting progression of designs. First with his family, didn't work out that well, but did it? Because it ended up working out very well. And that often is what happens with design. And then we have the master who came with the ultimate design, the design that said, the kingdom, the design of the kingdom is at hand. He brought the awakening to a design that man had not been aware existed, and he, in a living expression and demonstration and a very specific series of actions with specific people, brought something along. And there were great gatherings of people that were on hand at that time who were to play a very key part in bringing the design of the kingdom, Jerusalem, into the earth. Recently, I've just been very aware, because it's in the news, of the Jewish people and how their particular skill and excellence in many fields was present. And when the master incarnated into their proximity, into their people, it was because there were starting points in that people that could have been immensely useful if the design that the master had come to bring had continued to manifest. So that's an interesting point of meditation. So again, let's bring it to us. Looking back, it's clear that many of us were drawn to be in the proximity of the one that we knew as Martin. And it was happening to us with a power and a determination that we couldn't really have decided on our own. But there was this pull and attraction in the direction of Martin and with the people that were with him, because we were hearing something, not maybe with our physical ears, but we were hearing and sensing and perceiving something that was bringing us ever closely to what it is we felt we needed to do in our lifetimes. And when we made actual contact with Martin, the intensity of connection for many of us was very strong. Talk about velocity. It profoundly impacted us on emotional levels, spiritually, on physically too. We wanted to be near that. We wanted to be near him. Plans were dropped. People moved. There was a recognition that somehow we had fit. We had fit. I felt that. I felt that all the arrangements that I had been going through previously were all dress rehearsals, you might say, for the design that I found myself when I entered into Martin's world. So we can say, with the authority of our experience, I can say, with the authority of my experience, that Martin was added to that list of great ones that I mentioned in a profound way. And Yolanda, of course, was included in that. I think that it's truly humbling to recognize that these two great ones were incarnate at the same time on earth, bringing a message in union with one another, but in union with their Lord and King, that the kingdom of heaven was at hand. And we were part of it. We were actually incarnate at the same time. I think that is profoundly humbling. Last service, both David and Robert outlined some of the experiences that this configuration, this design of people, angels, has gone through over the cycles that it has been operating. And we saw how, just as was true, as Robert brought, with the older movements of people around a leader, that there were challenges. Caleb and Joshua had their friends, the spies, not believe what they were seeing. And they had to make adjustments in how that movement took place. But for us, we have continued also through some struggles, some difficult times, but with the prevailing spirit of victory. That same victory that we had felt underlining perhaps our lives and absolutely confirmed when we came into contact with Martin. And that prevailing sense of victory has become actually our true inheritance. Just as our earthly families gave us inheritances of, physical capacities, etc., we have an inheritance of victory. We know the victory came through the one we have known as Jesus, as the Master, full victory. And there's been a line of victory that has continued through the story, and we have been part of that story. We have shared it with Martin and Yolanda. And we recognize that these ones, like the great ones, these ones were particular archangelic presences that came to bring a message that was absolutely coherent and congruent with the messages that had gone before. And that was stunning, that the message was brought forth with increasingly specific description, depth, no corners left dark. Yolanda covered every little detail in the experience of the angel present in human form here at this time. He was a master psychologist. Martin, of course, was a master architect, as well as supremely wise. And he demonstrated physically bringing a design on Earth that we saw build in our lifetimes. In the story of our time together, in this gathering of angels that we know, right here, we know there are certain groupings of angels. We recognize that the topic of diversity has been increasingly becoming discussed. And I would suggest that the topic of diversity, or you might call it differentiation, can have two aspects. It can be the evidence of the scattering that took place after one of our struggles that we all participated after Martin died. So there was a scattering that took place. So that could be called diversity. We might see it and think it's diversity. The other diversity that I would highlight is as we are coming together increasingly, as the call is starting to pick up momentum, as the gathering is starting to gel again amongst us, we will notice the diversity. The closer we get, we will see diversity between us. Robert brought this up last service in speaking of how this could be something to keep our eyes open for, that this could be a human challenge that will arise between us. And I think that it might be a good idea to penetrate a little more on the whole area of differentiation and diversity. In a service given by Yolanda, entitled Realms of Living Laws of the Heart, he spoke about diversity so beautifully that I'd like to read some portions of it. Now, in his description, he brings up a phrase which may be unfamiliar to you. It's operational limitations. He brings that from using it as a metaphor from his experience with planes, how planes had operational limitations. There were things that they were not intended to do. It was a part of their design. So he will be speaking about operational limitations in terms of people, which could be also flipped and described that each one has specializations that they have been designed to bring. Plus, I'd just like to add that in hearing him speak about operational limitations, we are nowhere near filling our operational limitations. So let that be clear. I know I'm not at all. So there is plenty of expansion. It's not a limiting thing at all. So here's a couple paragraphs from that service. The recognition of our operational limitations does not limit use if we function correctly in the body of God on earth. The potentiality of all deity is open to us when we accept our own operational limits. Now, that may sound like a contradiction, but it is not, because your function within your own operational limits as a part of the body of God is necessary if that which is divine is to appear through you, to supplement or make whole that which appears through others. We have touched this in services in recent times. Next paragraph. The acceptance of our operational limitations individually permits us to come into a pattern of agreement with one another so that our processes or interrelationship and independence may come into the sphere of the creative field, and all together we may produce the wholeness of that which we all need. But it can be produced in no other way. This is the way it appears in heaven. That's a very weighty sentence. It's intimating that in heaven there is defined operational limits of each God being in heaven, and we are all part of the God being. So there's that wonderful, seemingly paradoxical thought that if we are individually fulfilling our own passion, that somehow that has to take precedence, or that's the game, that's the end all. But it isn't. It's actually interfacing with others who, when they're doing likewise, will augment and accelerate everything for everyone. This is a very dynamic, living design that we are participating in. When we live within our personal capabilities, and when our personal fulfillment is inextricably linked to others who are also living within their own operational limitations, then we have something that's really exciting, really living, something new, a design taking form that our minds could never have imagined. And that's why it's so essential not to think that you know what the design is supposed to look like, even your own. In some ways, we need to hand it over to the creative process, to the design that is being transmitted. And we'll get more into that how the design gets transmitted to us here on Earth. I also wanted to go back to something David mentioned last service, which was how we are operating under the influence of the four forces. We've heard this for forever in our training: water, air, earth, fire. I know personally this has been a really important concept or reality for me to meditate on and to understand more deeply. Right from the time I tried to teach it to a JTS class, and the exploration has continued. So here we are, as David was indicating, at the outset of one of these cycles that keep going around and around in a spiral. And it's going to be, as we approach and enter 2023, an air cycle. All these cycles are the vibration that is dominant. And we should, as Martin or Yolanda or both said, we should pay attention to the vibration that is dominant, because it is the way things will move along more usefully. So let's look at the air cycle. I wrote down some phrases to describe it, and I know you'll have some in your own mind. For instance, Martin called it an opportunity for increased vision. Yolanda said it's a time of keeping sacred things sacred. We probably all would say the word atmosphere when we think of the air cycle. Or we would talk about the generation of pneumoplasm as being an important aspect in an air cycle. In the Bible, it talks about dividing the waters above and the waters below, and the creation of a firmament. So those are ideas and words that we've had in our consciousness, which continue to be knocking at us to understand and live more fully. So man moving through these various cycles has not used the cycles successfully all the time. I think it's also worth noting that when, for instance, you look at the four forces as described in the Bible, that particular description is describing the creation of man. But we are at a different point in the spiral. And so we've been in the business of recreating man, restoring man as he was created. And that means that there are specific factors that are present for us to be aware of and to be alert to. In this particular air cycle, there is an interest in generating finer pneumoplasm. And that has become clear to us, I think, over the years. It was certainly something that Alan Hammond very much emphasized. And I think we recently have become more and more interested in the area of generating pneumoplasm. And I think that one thing to be alert to is that all life forms are generating pneumoplasm. The point is that the pneumoplasm has to be of a particular quality, because it is the particular quality that is going to provide the connecting points with which spirit can speak to man becoming restored. This is the way it gets transmitted. We generate pneumoplasm by means of our life force with our generative living, the living of the angel with its capacities of mind, body, heart. And this provides the substance that connects us with spirit, with the design in heaven. When I thought about this topic of generating fine pneumoplasm so that spirit has an opportunity to connect, I just kept coming back to the heart. Even though I was supposed to be thinking about the air cycle, I just realized that it's only with the purity of the heart that we can generate pneumoplasm that is of the finest quality, which will give us the clearest perception and discernment of what is the design that is emerging from heaven. So I thought it would be useful for us to hear what Yolanda had to say on this matter of the heart. In this clip that we're going to play, he gives us another lesson on design, the design of our being, the parts that are part of our capacity as an angel to use in this act of restoration. So let's play. It's 13 minutes audio, and listen to what Yolanda had to say.
You can begin to see that living is confined to the heart. Living in the sense of the experience is something that is of the heart, not of the mind, not of the body, but of the heart. Now, the mind can share living, the body can share living, but the place of living is the heart. And once you begin to realize that, you can see that whatever you experience in the process of living is due to something that works out in relationship to the heart. What you feel is that which gives meaning to anything of which you are aware. And that of which you have awareness has no meaning if you have no feeling with respect to it, no matter how true it might be. And the mere fact that you do not have any feeling with respect to it does not show that it has no meaning in potential fact. It does not say that it should not have meaning to you. And you can have feeling with respect to things which should not come in the range of your feeling pattern. Now, if you can imagine the heart as being something of a circle, and recognize that whatever is pulsing into or through that feeling nature of yours provides your living. That is the living you have. If there is fear in the heart, then that is a part of your life or process of living. If there is greed, then that is a part of it. If there is envy, if there is jealousy, then that is the process of your living. And it destroys the heart and therefore destroys the body and the mind. For your body and your mind can have life only by reason of the heart. We must not imagine that it is the body that provides the basic opportunity of living. It is not the mind that provides the basic opportunity of living. The opportunity of life for body and mind depends upon the heart. And whatever is working through your heart, the pulsations of your feeling realm, whatever they are, that is the subtotal of your living moment by moment. If the conscious mind is aware of those things, then you have a consciousness of your living. If the conscious mind is not aware of what is working in the feeling realm, then you do not have a consciousness of the forces that work in your living. But it is still your living, all the living you have. And there is no living as such outside of the heart. In other words, if the mind is to share living, it must be within the scope of the heart. If the body is to share living, it must be within the scope of the heart. And it is by reason of the heart that the mind, conscious and subconscious, and the body can have meaning. So, that which is at work in your heart, whether at the conscious or subconscious levels, whether above or below your level of awareness, provides the sum total of your opportunity to live. Now, in this opportunity to live, God gives wisdom, which is one of the key qualities or characteristics of the heart, the sense of the fitness of things. If you try to make your mind determine the fitness of things, you'll never succeed. It is only by the working of the heart that your mind can become aware of the fitness of things. And once you begin to see that, many of your problems of life will be simplified. In fact, many of them will simply disappear. But we come back to the basic fact that all living, all meaning in life, with respect to all things whatsoever, must appear through the heart by reason of the heart, the feeling realm, or what we call the emotional realm. Now, with respect to this external realm of things, the conscious mind is supposed to be the guardian angel of the subconscious mind. But the subconscious mind is supposed to be an instrument of the Spirit, and to have its face of response turned to the Father. Once we begin to see that whatever you are letting into your heart, whatever you are allowing to work through your heart or feeling nature, that is your living. It is the extent of your living, the sum total of your living. We can begin to see why impurity of heart causes human beings to have such an empty pattern of existence in relationship to anything truly worthwhile. Emptiness, not fullness and fulfillment. And so, that which you feel determines the extent of your living. You cannot live outside of or above or beyond your feeling. You cannot live without regard to your feeling or your heart. But you can live without letting the wrong pattern of feeling control. Many people feel that merely because they feel something, that is what they are, and they let it control. But the heart must become pure before you begin to see the reality of God, the reality of living, appearing in and through the heart. So the purification of the heart must come first. And until there is a recognition of these basic factors of being, and until you begin to realize them in relationship to yourself, you cannot possibly know fulfillment. You cannot know happiness. Some particular thing may give you happiness for the moment because it is something that can be used in movement in the right direction. But you say, well, now this gives me happiness, so I must do it again. And you do it again, and where is the happiness? It might conceivably have a relationship to happiness, but it might not. In other words, until we function in the heart according to the divine design, we cannot know life in body and mind according to the divine design. And the wisdom which gives us the privilege of awareness with respect to the divine design in living is in the heart. And it must be received from the heart into the mind, so that we may be wise. As the Master put it, wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Blessed ones, these basic factors will have significance to you according to your response in the heart to the spirit of the words of truth. And as you recognize these things and accept them, you will find that your progress along the way can be greatly speeded up, greatly increased. To what end? Progress for yourselves individually? No. Progress in your ability to function in giving to others. If you have recognized the principle of integrated relationship here, you will recognize that it is not by trying to get something for yourself, not even wisdom, not fulfillment, not spiritual understanding, not anything, not heaven itself. Your progress will be in direct ratio to the giving to others on the basis of that which you are supposed to provide for others. And that giving will manifest according to the degree of the purity of heart. And there will be purity of heart to the degree that there is control. But that control of your heart is not and never will be vested in you, the human being. Any effort on your part as a human being to gain control of your heart will fail. Absolutely. Billions of people have lived and died to try to hurdle that point, and it cannot be done. Remember that. There must be control in your heart, but that control of your heart does not and never will be vested in you, the human being. It must come from the Father to you. And as long as the human mind tries to usurp the pattern of control, he will die. Because he will receive into his heart those things that take life away from body and mind. And here is the secret of life without the limitations of death.
Such a wonderful reminder that when we think about it, we do live with the experience of our hearts. Like what is in our heart is determining what our experience is. It's such a profound thing to realize. I loved how he spoke about hearing this, the spirit of truth in the words, which obviously is something that we hear consciously, but that it's the spirit that comes into the heart through the words that is actually giving those words meaning, giving us meaning. So we hear the words consciously, but we receive the spirit in the words. And in the spirit is a blueprint. These are things that are not commonly understood. But there is a blueprint that is being transmitted through the truth of the words that our heart picks up, and that gives us meaning, fills us with the Holy Ghost, and allows the conscious aspect to act wisely and to, with the heart's wisdom, do something in our world, manifest in our world, bring the kingdom to the world, of the world, to the world. Right now, there is a lot of out of control design happening in the world. I don't think we could gather together today without referring to that. There is so much confusion and dysfunction of design and heart and layers of programming that are still playing out, cycles that have been aborted. The message has been lost. And interestingly, a lot of the hotspots are exactly where the message got lost, where something went off track. So I think that it behooves us to be aware that as we each do what Yolanda is describing, and the heart is purified, and we are aware of our own design, and we therefore see the design that's around us, those that are living with us, and that interplay starts to happen, there forms a one heart, a oneness that is available for the transmission of the divine design, which comes through, as we know, in a way that it isn't like God speaks in words to us and says, okay, do this, do that. That is why the quality of pneumoplasm that is present, the still heart and the quality of pneumoplasm allows the wisdom to be made known. And that presence on earth is what else is going to set it straight, except that there be a control pattern, a controlled body, a controlled heart filled with heart love that would begin to alter this. And here's another last point that I think is really important. Just as our lives were determined by that unseen hand I was talking about, there are unseen hands in the invisible levels that we have had the privilege to know something about. We have met two personally, in actual fact, one, Martin, who did arrive from the invisible and played a very essential part here. This is mystical information. This is not what the mind can really grok. But that fact makes us aware that there are beings at other levels, in other designs, in the heavenly design. He said that this is the way it happens in heaven. And they are doing what they need to do too. As we operate within our own operational limitations and do our job, and then the whole unified one heart and body does what there ours to do in the operational limitations within that allows forces that the spirit of whose body this really is to actually be able to do what they need to do with this particular situation on earth. So I think we need to just, as we lived our lives previously, proceed step by step, listening to the compulsion that leads us in the direction of the truth, learn to speak the truth ourselves, which I think is essential, to allow the word to become verbal in our mouths as spirit moves through, and to share that, to share our living with others, and do that part within our purviews, and know that this is in the hands of those and the one whose world this is, and this will be taken care of. It will proceed under the one law, and we know what that entails. So have heart, have courage, and give thanks for the design that we were drawn into, to know something of these things. So that is my offering this morning, that the good news is the kingdom of heaven is at hand, and that message has been brought again and again, and it is continually being brought in the atmosphere. It's there, and we just need to hear it moment by moment. So, Steve, did you want to take it over and open up comments?
I'd love to, but I'd like to first make a comment there. And you allowed us to move with the current that is now. And we've heard a lot of the principles, but now it's time to actually let them actually happen through our heart. And what really articulates in my conscious mind is to position our hearts to receive the Father. And that relates centrally to my awareness is the attitude of praise. Praise for our Lord. And as we do individually, we know more of a sensing of what it means to praise the Lord together and that one heart. So there's an impression from heaven. The divine design can unfold through us as one body to play our part within the one body. So those are my thoughts in response to your thoughts and words. Yeah. And I'm sure there's others that like to share their thoughts.
Indeed, Steve, as we share that, we become the transmitter of the Spirit. And thank you, Anne, for this wonderfully incisive expression of Spirit and what that Spirit contains. It seems to be ever expanding. Yet it comes to point in us, and I'm just so thankful to be in the presence of so many angels here today. I think there's 23 or 4 of us, and we just have this wonderful responsibility, which is a joy. It's not a heavy, onerous thing, to let that Spirit find its articulation, particularly as it, and we don't have to figure that out, as it expresses into the world moment by moment. The one Spirit takes care of everything. It lets everything happen. And so thank you so much. It's been just such a joy to be present today.
It really is a joy, and to experience and receive this remarkable download of mystical information. Often, I think we have thought of mystical information as being kind of woo-woo and maybe impractical, but this is infinitely practical. This is the way to allow this air cycle, quite specifically, to be everything it can be. The lyrics of the Christmas Carol come to mind. Let every heart prepare him room. Who is him? The living word. And as each of us allows our hearts to be absolutely brimming, full, packed with our love for the living word and what that can be in the current moment, we find that the waters above are indeed beautifully separated, as Gary said, ever expandingly, from the waters below. And there is adequate place in this perfect design for what's next. This is my job. This is the job of any who will pick up their bed and walk and be part of the amazing reintegration and restoration of the body of man on earth. And thank you for this time.
And it really has just been such a joy to journey with you. I loved what you said, and you demonstrated that we need to be able to speak the word because it does have that blueprint built into it. We were drawn, as you said, because of that, because it sounded, we heard. Even though for me, I didn't understand a word initially, but I heard. And everything that Yoranda taught us, and then Martin carried on, has been to bring us to this point where we can continue on and do the greater works. And, you know, Yolanda stated so clearly that we are meant to be the mind that was in Christ Jesus. And it has to, the heart. I loved how you outlined that the importance of the heart, but it cannot happen without the mind coming into full agreement with a heart that is centered in God. It cannot happen just with the heart. The mind has to come into agreement, because it is the mind that has thought it could do it all on its own, and it can't. We should have enough evidence of that in the world the way it is, that it cannot be done. It must be through purity of heart. And the mind has to yield itself to the beauty of the Lord's expression, that purified subconscious range. So I just thank you so much for, I feel, what is timely and crucial for our understanding in these days. And I'm just so thankful.
I would like to thank you also. And I think this is a beautiful time to discuss the purity of heart that's required for our work in this day. And we think of the 7 steps, patience being the first step. Okay, one must be patient with one's own capacities that may have a feeling that's not on tone, but also the control pattern that I provide to my capacities that allows that tranquility to occur. After I'm patient with it, then there's the tranquility, which allows this current of purity of heart. And I love when each of us who has something to offer can bring our own experiences into it, because that makes it so real. And we all live in the world the way it is now and have so many issues to deal with. We are one in the issues as well as the heaven. So if we can deal with those issues personally, internally, we share in the process of experiencing the heaven together. And it's beautiful how articulate you have been with this process today, and to share those powerful words of the dear Yolanda we love. It brings us together. I feel this heart that comes together in a gathering such as this. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to prepare and to present with such articulation.
And I'm so
this
deeply
is
thankful. He's there.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to express my deep appreciation for the design as it exists today, for the understanding that we are privileged to have, for the heart that we have developed to this point, individually and collectively, to be able to move in agreement and to be able to speak the word into the world. I've been feeling this week such a longing in the world that something could change from all of this chaos and destruction, and a longing that there might be some way, and yet we have the gift of understanding the way. And ultimately, though we can't control our heart and manipulate it with our human consciousness, what we can do is exercise the first great commandment, which is to love the Lord our God with all. And I know that those of us who are sharing this time together are doing that. And I'm just so very grateful for what each one brings and for each base that each one covers, because I certainly can't cover all of them. And each one has such unique talents and gifts that are critical in this time on earth. So thank you, Anne, for bringing this, and thank you, everyone, for your beautiful expression of spirit in the earth today.
Thank you. This is Alice Penwell, and Anne I just want to thank you for the beautiful, loving, gentle spirit of love that you brought forth. That tone, that beautiful tone, and of course, the intelligence, gorgeous wisdom of life. But for me, the tone that you used today was the perfect sound. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. This is Luann. I love the hand of assurance. And like Alice said, the spirit of truth is a great hand of assurance on us and into the world. When you described in the beginning how all these relationships in our lives are a design that's also in the heaven, it's all working out and it's okay. I saw that also for the heart. This design of all these things, this interactions with the heart. We're so busy. I don't know if you are, but that, oh, the pure heart, it can be, it's a trap if we're not careful. That this is the place where life is happening and the purification is happening and the pure heart is the result. And it happens continually. It's the most amazing thing to participate in. And you brought that to us today, that the assurance that these relationships in my life are perfect. The design is developing perfectly, and that this heart is also developing perfectly in every moment for the grandest and the finest pneumoplasm possible for the realm that we are recreating now as mankind through us comes back home. So this was a very precious time together. Thank you so much.
And this is Davina. I want to acknowledge the blessing, the assurance, and the power that was released through this hour with you. It never ceases to amaze me, the capability of spirit when it's honed and harnessed through a pure heart and an intellect that matches it. I just picked out one sentence that stood out to me of the many. The still heart lets the wisdom be known. The still heart. I just think there's so much moving in the heart realm these days. And the focus, I think, has to be on the stillness of heart, at least for me. Otherwise, the Lord who's delivering whatever needs to be delivered can't be delivered, not clearly, not wholesomely, not truly. So I offer my blessings and my deep gratitude and appreciation and my love into the whole right here. Thank you.
And as you talk about the relationships we've had, that we have with us now, a lot of the ones that we knew back along the way have gone to the other side, and they haven't disappeared. Martin hasn't disappeared. Bill Bann hasn't disappeared. None of the friends that we knew, Roger DeWinton, And I remember a friend of mine, John Wascom, when he left, people said, well, he was needed at a larger level to help, work out things for the future. And I think of these ones, and I communicate with these ones often. I think of them, especially during attunement times. They're very much with us in the heaven, helping to create the patterns, as you mentioned, this design, this really what Michael Sissel called an instruction for how the new world is to come about. Not so much a set pattern, but an instruction based on how things are now. And I think it's the wisdom of these ones is very available to us. I so love what you have brought. You stirred so much in my heart. Thank you.
Oh, Anne, I really appreciate your panoramic view that you gave us today, going back to the time of Abraham, thousands of years ago. And we can see how the Lord sent his angels on earth at different times to bring together a body of angels that could serve his purpose, and how unfortunately it has failed a number of times. But now we can sense the strength of what is present with us now, that at this particular moment, there are enough conscious angels to realize what is required of each one to let this come together. And the purification of the heart is so key to the restoration of man. It's not something, the mass heart is so disturbed, it is so tangled. And we can see this in the conflict between the Arab and the Israelis. That's just one instance of how tangled the human heart is. But we can see that it takes a body of conscious angels to bring about the clarification of the heart. And that's the way it begins. There must be an opening. There must be the window of heaven through those who are conscious of what is required now for the purification of the heart. And as we know, that has a profound effect upon the mass consciousness. And so what we are doing together is no small thing. It is allowing something potent to come into the whole consciousness of mankind. And through that influence, there's an invitation of lifting up, lift up. And that's our message. Come up hither, come up where we belong, but it has to begin at first with a core body of conscious angels. Thank you, Anne. It was a lovely consideration with you today.
Well, thank you, everyone who spoke. Really appreciate hearing from you. That was my hope, that it would stimulate and excite and invite thoughts from you. And as we do this together, as we speak the word together, and I liked that emphasis that Millie brought, the necessity for the word to be spoken. And the accurate word, as we have looked back on the great ones that have come and what the master established when he was here, the essential ingredient that we need has already been offered. And I think that for people to ignore the well that sits in the oasis and crawl past it into the sands, I think we do have a deep well that is available, and it has magical components because that well is also our giving, our well. It's one and the same. It's all one. And as we align with the one whose word it is, we can participate in the exciting living and speaking and articulating in all ways the truth. And it's a magical, magical thing. And I think we've all begun to have that experience in various configurations where we find ourselves speaking and saying things that we never thought of before that come into our mind at that moment. And we realize that the waters are flowing and that you can hardly stop it. And when you finish speaking, you look back and you think, oh my goodness, I really liked what I said. That's the waters of truth beginning to flow through us. And I think we're on the precipice of doing that more effectively. I find that very exciting. I still remember those times when Martin would be up in front of us and at the lectern. And this one time when he just sat there, I guess he was sitting in his chair, and he just waited to see who was going to speak. And no one spoke. I can't remember exactly what transpired. Maybe somebody eventually did, but there was a long gap. And I think he longed for that. He longed for those who would be able to speak as he was, letting the waters flow through their consciousness, from the wisdom of the heart, the purified heart. So that's something that's very dear to me right now in this cycle, the air cycle. Okay, hand it over to Steve.
Thank you, Anne. We all are grateful for what you brought today, and we're all grateful to be together in this movement that's picking up, because we're looking to see how our hearts can be positioned rightly to allow the Father to speak through us. Let the words of truth be spoken. And that brings union and a thirst and a hungering for more. And as we do so, our next service, Marcia will be leading on November 26th. I look forward to that time, and I'm sure we all do. Robert, we have some music.
Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me dio dos luceros que cuando los abro, perfecto distingo lo negro del blanco, y en el alto cielo su fondo estrellado, y en las multitudes el hombre que yo amo. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado el sonido y el abecedario, con él las palabras que pienso y declaro. Madre, amigo, hermano, y luz alumbrando la ruta del alma del que estoy amando. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado la marcha de mis pies cansados, con ellos anduve ciudades y charcos, playas y desiertos, montañas y llanos, y la casa tuya, tu calle y tu patio. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me dio el corazón que agita su marco cuando miro el fruto del cerebro humano, cuando miro el bueno tan lejos del mal, cuando miro el fondo de tus ojos claros. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado la risa y me ha dado el llanto. Así yo distingo dicha de quebranto, los dos materiales que forman mi canto y el canto de ustedes, que es el mismo canto, y el canto de todos, que es mi propio canto. Gracias a la vida, gracias a la vida, gracias a la vida, gracias a la
Gracias a la vida. Thank you for life. Beautiful time together. Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Ole.